It was the kind of betrayal that most people only see in movies or nightmare headlines. But for Lil Scrappy, it was happening in real time, in front of cameras, a judge, an entire courtroom, and the cold stare of his ex-wife. The moment felt surreal. Like the floor had vanished beneath him, and he was falling into a pit that had no bottom. 1 minute, he was sitting in that courtroom as a man defending his family, his honor, his name. And in less than 10 minutes, everything he had built, his marriage, his public image, and even his dignity, was ripped away by the very person who once promised to stand by him. That person was Bambi. Yes, that Bambi, the one who cried on national television, who sat in confessionals swearing loyalty and love, the same Bambi who comforted him during his darkest moments, who painted herself as the ride-or-die wife millions of fans rooted for. But today, she wasn't that woman anymore. Today, she walked into the courtroom with a calmness that sent chills through everyone watching. She looked the judge directly in the eye, her voice steady and her words deliberate. "I lied to protect him," she said, "but now I'm done protecting." And just like that, the fuse was lit. Her words detonated through the courtroom like a silent explosion. The entire gallery froze. Lil Scrappy sat frozen, unable to move or react, his heart racing, his mind spinning. Stevie Jay, sitting off to the side in a crisp designer suit, allowed himself a sly grin, one that screamed victory without saying a word. But what unfolded next wasn't just a confession. This wasn't some tearful apology or messy he said, she said argument. No, what Bambi delivered was far more sinister. It was a calculated ambush. And according to courtroom whispers, it had been orchestrated by none other than Stevie Jay himself. She calmly admitted to the affair. But this wasn't just about cheating. It was a full-blown strategic alliance designed to manipulate, to control narratives, to reshape public opinion on a grand scale. The affair, she revealed, began 2 years ago. What started as emotional, comfort turned physical. And then it became something darker, strategic. As Bambi laid out her testimony, the courtroom leaned in. Even the judge furrowed his brow, trying to grasp the depth of what he was hearing. She described how she and Stevie Jay became emotionally close during the filming of an unaired spin-off. She painted a picture of Lil Scrappy being emotionally unavailable, buried in music projects, club appearances, and his own fame, leaving her vulnerable enough to fall into Stevie Jay's waiting arms. But then, Bambi dropped the real bombshell. She claimed that what they were building wasn't just an affair. They were building storylines, manipulating episodes and confessionals to steer public perception. Entire therapy sessions, emotional arguments, even private conversations that fans thought were raw and unscripted were allegedly staged for maximum drama. She even admitted that one of the most famous scenes, her tearful breakdown in the kitchen about Scrappy's lack of support, was a complete fabrication. She wasn't crying over Scrappy. She was crying because just the night before, she had been with Stevie Jay. The courtroom atmosphere shifted from shocked silence to barely contained chaos. Phones buzzed as bloggers and journalists sitting in the back hurriedly took notes and prepared their headlines. Some mouths hung open. One blogger accidentally whispered an audible, "Oh, she," that broke through the heavy air. Meanwhile, Lil Scrappy sat there like a statue. His face tightened, veins bulging in his forearms as his fists clenched the edge of the table. He didn't scream, he didn't move, but every inch of his face screamed devastation. Stevie Jay, still smirking, barely even blinked. Then came another blow. Bambi explained how Stevie used his connections with producers and network executives to shape the show's narrative, painting her as the struggling wife and Lil Scrappy as the inattentive, emotionally distant husband. According to her, entire arcs were edited and reshot based on Stevie's instructions. Every time Bambi cried on camera, Stevie would tell her, "This is your arc, stay in it." The judge raised an eyebrow. "Do you have any proof of these claims, Mrs. Richardson?" Without hesitation, Bambi reached into her designer handbag and pulled out a small black USB drive. The courtroom collectively inhaled. "Yes, Your Honor," she said. "Every message, every voice note, every text." At that moment, Lil Scrappy finally stood up, slow and deliberate. He looked at her with eyes full of betrayal and confusion. His voice was low, barely above a whisper. "You was in my house, playing wife, while building scenes with that man." No one told him to sit down. Not even the judge dared to break the moment. Bambi remained silent, but Stevie leaned over to his attorney and whispered something. The attorney chuckled. That was the last straw. "Lily?" Scrappy slammed his fist against the table, his eyes locking on Stevie Jay with pure fury. His voice broke into a roar. "You think this funny? You destroyed my family? You used my wife, my image, my life, for ratings!" The judge intervened sharply. "Mr. Richardson, control yourself or I'll hold you in contempt." But it was already too late. The air was thick with anger, betrayal, and raw emotion. Bambi continued, unbothered, explaining how she and Stevie used neutral locations, production houses, undisclosed office spaces, to plan out scenes in advance. It was meticulous, places where no one could track their meetings, places that didn't raise suspicion. And then came the financial scandal. One of those production addresses had surfaced on recent tax filings, tied to an LLC allegedly owned by Stevie Jay. The LLC was connected to suspicious transactions involving promotional partnerships and show funds. The courtroom was no longer just dealing with infidelity or reality TV manipulation. This had now crossed into the realm of financial crimes. Scrappy's lawyer wasted no time. He requested full subpoena power to investigate production email logs, talent contracts, and metadata on confessionals. The allegation was clear. Bambi and Stevie weren't just having an affair. They were manipulating the entire show for financial and personal gain. The tension reached a boiling point. And then, Stevie Jay stood up. "If I speak," he said with a sinister calmness, "they're gonna need a whole new courtroom." The entire room froze. Even the judge leaned back, weighing whether to stop him or let him proceed. Stevie inhaled deeply, then calmly walked over to the prosecution's table and slid a manila folder across it. "That's Exhibit H," he said. "And trust me, it makes that USB look like kindergarten homework." Whispers erupted throughout the courtroom. A woman in the gallery gasped audibly. The judge adjusted his glasses. "And what exactly does Exhibit H contain?" Stevie smirked. "Everything they thought would never come out. Emails, scripts, direct payments, wire transfers. Texts between Bambi and a senior VH1 producer plotting Scrappy's public downfall. And yes, a few love notes too." Scrappy's attorney objected immediately, calling the evidence an ambush. The judge waved him off. "We're here now. Let's see. What's inside?" The courtroom exploded when the files were unsealed. A 53-page document laid bare the entire operation, evidence that Bambi, Stevie, and a VH1 executive known as RL, a former showrunner, had greenlit entire scene pivots without Scrappy's knowledge. They had rewritten episodes to frame Scrappy as the villain while building Bambi into America's favorite reality TV wife. Among the files were confessional notes, specific talking points given to Bambi by producers on how to manipulate her breakdowns and avoid mentioning Stevie at all costs. The infamous steakhouse fight, completely staged, and that was just the beginning. The financial trail was even filthier. Bank records revealed payments made to a fake wellness company called Glow Empire Co., allegedly owned by Bambi, which received nearly $100,000 funneled through VH1 promotional accounts. The receipts? Signed by Stevie Jay. Then came the burner accounts. Screenshots showed direct messages between Bambi and a profile named Mr. Gray, arranging wire receipts and requesting bonuses for staying in character. It was now believed that Mr. Gray was a burner account used by Stevie Jay to communicate with Bambi secretly. The courtroom was on fire. Social media was already ablaze as news outlets outside the courthouse blasted the story to millions. Lil Scrappy sat there, completely hollowed out. His lawyer leaned over, whispering, "This man didn't just betray you. He weaponized your entire life." But Stevie Jay wasn't done. He requested to read a statement aloud. The judge hesitated, then reluctantly nodded. Stevie stepped forward, holding the script like a director preparing his final scene. "I didn't come here to be petty. I didn't come to gloat. I came here because they said this was entertainment. But while y'all were counting views, some of us were watching our names get dragged while the real snakes collected checks. I protected Bambi when she was crying backstage, scared she'd be labeled the villain. I shielded her. And when she asked me to flip the narrative, I did it because she said she was drowning. But Scrappy never saw it coming because the people closest to you don't stab you in the chest. In the chest. He paused, allowing the silence to cut through the room like a knife. And then finally, Bambi snapped. "No!" she shouted. "You don't get to twist this. I was drowning because of you. You convinced me that if I didn't play along, VH1 would blacklist me. You said I had no choice." Stevie laughed, a cold, dismissive chuckle. "You weren't drowning, Bambi. You were surfing on the wave we created together." Security quickly stepped between them as the argument escalated. Scrappy sat frozen, barely blinking, his mind unraveling as years of his life were exposed as one elaborate staged betrayal. But even then, the worst wasn't over. A court officer suddenly entered carrying a sealed envelope marked Emergency Exhibit I. The judge opened it, skimming the contents, and his face hardened. "This court has just received a sworn affidavit from an anonymous VH1 staff member," he announced, alleging that multiple cast members were instructed to sabotage Lil Scrappy's reputation in exchange for larger contracts and off-screen deals. The entire courtroom went breathless. Inside that affidavit was a list of names, producers, editors, 2 VH1 executives, and at the very bottom, Mama D. Lil Scrappy's own mother, F. Turned his head slowly toward her seat in the gallery. "Tell me it's a lie," he whispered. "Tell me you didn't sell me out for your own storyline." She said nothing. She didn't need to. The silence was louder than any answer. The judge called for a recess, but the damage was done. The headlines were already exploding. Outside, fans were chanting. Reporters were live streaming from the courthouse steps. Hashtags were trending across every platform. Scrappy sat motionless, staring at the empty witness stand, as his attorney leaned in and whispered the haunting words that marked the turning point of this entire case. "This isn't just divorce, court anymore. This is grounds for a federal investigation." When court reconvened, the energy in the room was suffocating. What had started as a divorce proceeding had mutated into something far more dangerous, something criminal. The judge re-entered holding the affidavit like it carried the weight of a human life. Every eye in the room was locked on him. The gallery was packed, every seat filled, every phone recording, every journalist ready to break the next headline. Outside, the courthouse, the media circus was in full bloom. Reporters screamed into cameras, hashtags trended globally, and live streams captured the chaos spilling out of the courtroom. Lil Scrappy entered the room like a man walking into his own funeral. His shoulders were heavy, his face hollow, the light in his eyes dim. He didn't even look at Bambi. He didn't glance at Stevie Jay, not even at Mama D. His entire world had collapsed in a matter of hours. The judge's voice was sharp as he opened the session. "We will now address Exhibit Y, the sworn affidavit, submitted by an anonymous VH1 staff member." As the judge read from the document, the allegations ripped through the courtroom like a hurricane. Premeditated storyline manipulation, financial interference, emotional abuse, all carefully coordinated over multiple seasons. Then came the names, producers, editors, 2 VH1 executives, and finally, Mama D. The courtroom gasped. Mama D stood up, hands trembling. "Your Honor, I object." "You are not on trial yet, ma'am," the judge cut her off. "But if these allegations are proven, you may very well be." That's when Lil Scrappy stood, his voice shaking. "You really did it? You made me the villain? For a storyline?" Mama D's response was ice cold. "I tried to help you. They were going to cut you off. Your music wasn't charting, your scenes were flat, and your marriage was already falling apart. I did what I had to do to keep the lights on. By selling me out? By destroying your own son's name on national television?" Bambi chimed in quietly but firmly. "He's not the only one who was used." The judge raised his hand, stopping them. "Enough. You'll all have a chance to speak. But first, the court must review Exhibit J." The bailiff inserted the flash drive. What played on the screen turned this already volcanic scandal into something absolutely nuclear. A Zoom call, time-stamped, watermarked, undeniable. 5 production heads discussing the manipulation like it was just another business meeting. Their voices crystal clear. If Bambi delivers the breakdown scene by Monday, we'll greenlight her wellness brand segment. Scrappy's looking unstable. Lean into that arc. Get Mama D to say something reckless. She always delivers. And then Stevie Jay's voice, unmistakable. I got Bambi rehearsing it already. It's gonna be Emmy-worthy. The courtroom fell into stunned silence, but it wasn't over. Another video loaded, a second production call. What if Scrappy flips for real? One voice asked. Then we film it. Let him break. Real tears get real clicks, Lil Scrappy whispered under his breath. They watched me break and called it content. Stevie Jay couldn't resist. You weren't a victim, Scrap. You were asleep at the wheel. You let us drive. Scrappy finally snapped. You think this is power? You used me. You had me yelling at my wife on national TV while you texted her on a burner about which dress she should cry in. Security rushed forward. The judge slammed his gavel down. Control yourselves. But the room had already lost control. Scrappy's attorney stood up, voice full of fire. Your Honor, in light of Exhibits I and J, we are filing a motion for criminal conspiracy to defraud and requesting a full federal investigation into financial documents, falsified contracts, and misrepresented mental health claims for monetary gain. The judge nodded slowly. Motion accepted. I will submit this matter to federal authorities. And just like that, everything changed. This wasn't reality TV anymore. It was federal crime. The outside world erupted as news broke of the federal probe. Social media exploded. Warfire VH1 trended globally. Sponsors panicked. Energy drink companies scrubbed Bambi's image from their websites. A mental health app publicly condemned VH1 for exploiting trauma for profit. But then came another unexpected turn. Lil Scrappy broke his silence. He went live on Instagram. No lighting, no filters, just him in a dark room, eyes heavy with pain. This ain't about TV no more, he said. This about people who looked me in my face, called me family, then sold my pain for views. He paused. Mama D, I love you, but you broke something in me I don't know how to fix. Bambi, I hope it was worth it. Then he ended the live. No promo, no merch, just raw emotion. But Lil Scrappy wasn't done. The next morning, his legal team filed a new lawsuit. Lil Scrappy versus Visionary Media Holdings, VH1 and Associates. Allegations: fraud, defamation, emotional exploitation, revenue theft, and contractual manipulation. VH1 panicked. Within hours, the network released a statement announcing a full internal investigation. Production was suspended. Episodes were pulled from streaming platforms. Mona Scott Young, the mastermind behind the franchise, went radio silent, but leaks kept coming. A secret voice note allegedly captured Mona Scott Young venting to her staff. This is what happens when people forget they're replaceable. Scrappys. Legal team didn't flinch. Instead, they announced their own counterattack. A docuseries titled The Price of Reality. A full expose revealing every contract clause, every manipulated scene, every dirty deal. But the craziest part? The narrator wouldn't be Scrappy. It would be Stevie Jay, because in the end, Stevie Jay wasn't just the villain. He was the proof that reality TV was never real. Lil Scrappy had lost everything. His wife, his mother, his peace, his legacy. But in losing everything, he found the most dangerous weapon of all, the truth. And now, it was payback time. But the story wasn't finished yet. Just when the world thought it couldn't get any darker, another leak surfaced. Screenshots from Bambi's private email accounts hit the blogs. Subject lines like, Scene notes, Steve X Bambi bedroom confession. Do we have clearance for Scrappy's breakdown? If Scrappy threatens to walk, remind him of the bonus fans exploded in outrage. VH1 sponsors withdrew one after another. Advertisers vanished overnight. Entire brands publicly condemned the exploitation of real trauma for scripted television. The entire reality TV industry was on the verge of collapse. But then came the final twist, the one no one saw coming. An anonymous source leaked that Exhibit K was coming. And this time, it would include unreleased footage, a stolen laptop, and audio recordings from inside Mona Scott Young's private office. That footage allegedly contained direct conversations about rigging contracts, manipulating cast members, and discussions about which personal breakdowns would get the most views. It was darker than anyone imagined. At this point, Lil Scrappy wasn't just a cast member. He was the case, the blueprint of an industry built on broken people. The warning? Shot to every reality TV star who thought they were safe. The only question left was, would anyone survive Exhibit K?